Hi, my name is Jonathan Cooper, and this is Design for Evolution, the future of graphic design.
Since the role of graphic designer originated, our positions have been utilized to polish goods and services, the packaging containing them, the systems delivering them, and the messaging around them. We perpetuate consumerism. However, since the early 1900s, designers have been developing a framework to create change through our work. Modernists in Russia brought about communist ideals, inspiring Western consideration for designing for good with a capital G. Today, we stand on the precipice between political turmoil and human rights, and our roles as designers will continue its evolution. We will shift from assisting consumerism to actively addressing new humanitarian efforts. Historically, where art and graphic design overlaps includes areas with tumultuous political landscapes. Starting in the 1910s, Russian constructivists focused their efforts on public-facing media to perpetuate the revolution. Artists like Alexander Rodchenko took the manifestations of the constructivist style and applied them to visual mediums. Across film, posters, architecture, and production, Russian designers were able to broadcast a favorable opinion of equality across genders, sustainable practices within a workforce, and other far-left humanist ideals. The Russian constructivists developed the roadmap for artists and designers functioning as both product designers and change purveyors. When industrialization moved west, designers could navigate similarly within their domain. In Europe and America, industrialization met capitalism in a way that birthed a consumer culture. In the 1960s, designers considered their relationship with this toxic consumerism, and in 1964, Ken Garland published the First Things First manifesto in Britain. A call to arms for designers to be more than just pushers of cheap pet food and cigarettes, Garland found success in enlightening the design field, and graphic design elevated from a byproduct of commercialism, and designers were empowered with conscious and ethical reasoning as it relates to their work. Over the years, Garland's manifesto has followed a progression, and the evolution is a logical one. Conscious design practices blossom into designing for good. In his 2008 book, Do Good: How Design Can Change the World, David B. Berman documents the ultimate goal for graphic designers' efforts as impacting their environment in a positive way. Built on the shoulders of the First Things First manifesto, Berman explains that change comes from the individual's decision of each moment, and that the collective ethical effort of designers towards a utopian end will produce favorable results. Where his thesis falls short is in the assumptions that designers have the positioning in our relationships with clients to motivate towards ethical practices. Change in favor of human rights is often bad business practice when it comes to dollars and cents. Change, as it relates to graphic design, cannot come from the exact right client project. Instead, it requires a focus on engaging the culture around the designer and promoting the values that embrace those human rights outside of the commercialism that Berman, Garland, and the constructivists all decry. Today, designers have a handful of models to reference for designing for change outside of capitalistic means. Political movements mimic marketing campaigns. The Green New Deal has a dedicated poster series curated by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where designers have illustrated the ideal future promised by the movement. The political turmoil that followed the 2016 American presidential election pushed the function of designers even further. Because the language around Donald Trump's campaign was so divisive, his words became a call to action for those that stood against their meeting. From 2016 through 2021, we saw record-breaking groups take to the streets to show support for women's rights and Black Lives Matter. The Pussy Hat Project saw a collaborative effort in the millions to craft pink hats for protesters to wear at the marches, becoming a cultural icon. The same collaborative efforts were mimicked moving into the summer of 2020 with protests for Black Lives Matter. While the movement saw the largest global response in history, each person that marched fell in line with everyone else under the same symbols. Unified chants repeating the names of victims of police brutality, signs and flags displaying the same few words calling for actionable change, and fists in the air. Following the footsteps of the design practices that led to Garland's First Things First and Berman's Do Good: How Design Can Change the World, the creative efforts behind the movements like the Green New Deal, the Pussy Hat Project, and Black Lives Matter became platforms for designers to develop work outside of client briefs and capitalistic gains. The relationship between the designers and their philanthropic efforts is still in its infancy here, and currently exists as some complementary equation where designers supplement their client work with some percentage of designing for good. The future of graphic design will function as an effort to promote the resolution to issues that impact so many. However, designers will need to address the faults within those earlier methodologies. In First Things First, designers were attempting to resolve consumer cultures by making more conscious efforts regarding client-driven work. They were attempting to resolve the faults of capitalism with capitalism. The issue highlighted in the original text of the First Things First manifesto have not gone away. In fact, those issues have only grown to be more nuanced, politicized, and obfuscated from remedying. This evolution is described by Karl Marx in his Critique of Capitalism. The early stages of capitalism benefit practices that generate income, regardless of the moral grounds around them, and the eventual consequence is a drive towards obsolescence. An indication of Marx's theory is exemplified by wealth inequality. Between 1978 and 2018, the income of the wealthiest 1% in America rose from 10% to 19%, and the income of the top 0.1% rose from 7% to 18%. With increased wealth inequality, late-stage capitalism will develop into issues that reach larger populations, widening the gap between the privileged and the oppressed. Our roles as graphic designers will evolve from working similarly to the contemporary models of political campaigns to a more focused broadcast of informative, attainable change. We will see more agencies focusing on nonprofit efforts with more designers committing to full-time schedules. Designers will undertake the effort to bring necessary structural change into the zeitgeist in honest, informative ways, so that the American culture becomes literate in the issues that hurt so many.